Chapter 13. You have a great place here, Jonas. I never thought you'd find something like this. It suits you just fine. Alex sauntered through the tables and booths, walked up to the bar, placed her hand down and walked the length of it, turned to face Jonas. You actually found something that you can do, that's better than dealing with those bondage clubs. Looking down at her with a broad smile, those bondage clubs brought in a lot of money. This won't be as lucrative. But you'll be able to sleep at night in your own bed with your wife. Now that's a thought. A good one at that. Jonas and Alex sat on the bar stool next to each other in front of a large mirror, and when Alex glanced around the room, there were flat televisions in every corner and off to the sides. People like to watch television and drink. It's like being at home, only you're not lonely. You have people to share your life with, if just for a few hours. Alex and Jonas's eyes locked on each other. Each one saw something different. Alex saw Max. Jonas had Max's face, smile and eyes. Identical twins, and few could tell them apart. But Alex could when Jonas smiled at her. Jonas saw Alex. Beautiful, young, and self-confident. A woman he'd kill for, but couldn't touch or have. He had to settle for the next best thing, a real woman he could have, and not a fantasy. He couldn't fuck a fantasy, only in his dreams. When he looked down at Brook's face when he was fucking her, he thought of Alex. When he'd asked Brook to tie him up and sit on his cock, he thought of Alex. When he'd handcuffed Brook and had her face down on his bed, her ass in the air, he took her from behind and thought of Alex. Jonas? Where are you going on your honeymoon? Jonas turned to Alex after staring in the mirror, thinking about her. We're flying out to Hawaii. Max said we could use one of his jets. When I talked to him, he did say that he had taken care of everything. I thought he'd gotten rid of those company jets, Alex said. He kept two in one of those small planes. One jet as a standby, and one for the company. The plane is for travel over a short distance, and only when he needs to travel a few miles. You know Max always keeps a spare. Alex narrowed her gaze at Jonas. I didn't mean that. What I meant, Alex, well, he'd never look at another woman. If I had a woman like you, I'd never want or look at another either. Alex hopped off the bar. I think I want to make myself a drink. She strolled around the bar, reached, and offered a beer to Jonas. Then she poured herself a vodka shot and drank it, then sucked the lime. When she looked up, she saw a tall man in a light-weight suit standing inside the bar. Then she heard him say, While you're sucking on that lime, what about coming home tonight and suck my cock the way you used to before you met Blackstone? Jonas jumped from the seat, turned to face the man who had made those crude remarks to Alex. Then Jonas's long legs strode in his direction and met the man halfway. He stood eye to eye with Jonas. She's not Brook and I want you to apologize to her, Jonas growled. He doesn't have to, Jonas. When Mark heard Alex speak, he realized that Jonas had told the truth. Mark continued walking in the direction to the bar. Jonas, with a furrowed brow and long strides, marched alongside Mark, whispering something to him that Alex didn't hear. Whatever it was, it didn't deter Mark from reaching the bar to get a better look at the woman standing behind it. I'm closed, Jonas said, turning to face Mark, who leaned on the bar to get a better look at Alex. Mark slanted his head to the side. You look like Brook. I thought you were her. You have the same hair. Same face and damn, but you're beautiful. You're older than her, but you can't really tell. Then he turned to Jonas. You're fucking both of them? That's kind of sick, isn't it? Fuck two women who look alike. Mark turned back to face Alex as he leaned forward. Did he tell you what kind of woman my Brook is? I created her to service me, and then he comes along and she leaves me for this. She's my dominant, Mark said, his voice filled with pain. Alex turned to Jonas. I think we should close the doors and go, Jonas. I haven't eaten today. Would you go with me to dinner? I know a great restaurant, Mark stated, leaning back, crossing his arms over his chest, his eyes locked with Alex. Alex didn't waver on her stare, but Mark lowered his eyes, submissive to her. Mark knew immediately that she was a dominant. She had been a dominant to every man who wanted her, but Max. They'd shared that role equally. No, thank you. Why not? I can give you as much as he's giving you. I'm a great-looking guy, but I'm a little lonely. I probably won't talk about anyone but Brook. I'll pay you to listen to me cry my heart out over her. He took her from me. Did he tell you that? And who did he steal you from? Don't say one more word, Mark. This is my sister-in-law and you're drunk. Go home and forget Brook. She's with me now. She's not going back to you, ever. Mark turned after he'd taken one more look at Alex and aimed a smile her way. Beautiful. If you ever need a sub, I'm your man, beautiful lady. And Mark stumbled out of the bar into a limo after tightening his jaw, narrowing his glance and shaking his head at Jonas. What the fuck was that about, Jonas? Let's get out of here. I'll tell you on the ride home. Jonas locked up and they climbed into the Corvette. He turned the music down low and told Alex about how he met Brook. He told her about her leaving Mark and why. He told Alex how Mark watched men make love to Brook, and that she had met him when she was 17, and had been married to him when she turned 18, and that she ran away and got a divorce from him, and he's married now, but he can't let her go even when she'd broken it off with him several times. When Mark found her again, she had been homeless and went back to him for fear she'd have to live on the street. He bought her a house, sent her to college, but he kept bringing men to her, and he'd said that he'd never let her go. As Jonas pulled into the driveway and turned off the motor, Alex sat quietly with her eyes closed. She couldn't believe how Jonas had managed to get himself into this. I have to tell Max, she said. Jonas reached for her arm. Don't. Please don't. You know what happens every time I keep things from Max. It doesn't end well. It will be okay. We're moving from here, out of this house, and he won't be able to find her. You have a business. How are you going to deal with that? He doesn't want me. He wants Brook. Can't you see what's going on? Mark, that's his name, he's a desperate man, and desperate men in love will do anything. Brook's his dominant. She has to take responsibility for this too. Take Max, for example. Don't you realize that he will never let me go? He has done any and everything to keep me. Max loves me, and he has a deep need that goes beyond me being his wife. He hungers for what I do to and for him. If Max thinks anyone will take me from him, he becomes almost dangerous. You know it. I've seen men like him. Do you remember Robert? How could Jonas forget Robert? But he tried. I've tried to forget Robert. He tried to come in between me and Max. Do you remember what happened to him? But you can't think that Max would have anything to do with that. I don't know, Jonas, but that man has the same look in his eyes as a man who's desperate not to lose something precious. I can tell you for sure, he's into all kinds of sexual games that he probably plays with Brook. How do you know she's not playing a game with you to make Mark jealous? Let's get out of the car. It's making me nervous. I can't stand being in confined places too long, Alex. After walking out the car and Jonas opening the door to the house for Alex, she stopped in the foyer, turned and glared at him. You didn't answer me, Jonas. She could be playing games with you. She isn't. She loves me. I can feel it. She makes me happy, and I want to live again. I don't know what I'll do if something happens to her. Alex glanced down because Jonas had a tight grip on her arm, but when he realized that he was hurting her, he dropped his hands. I'll get us something to eat, Alex suggested. I can order something, Alex. I know how to cook, Jonas. You need something hot. I can make you some soup. Do you have some chicken? Yeah. Leftover cold chicken. Perfect. What time are Brooke's classes over? I don't know, I never asked her. You should find out. And you should warn her about Mark. I will, Alex. I will. Just do one thing for me. Help Brooke dress for our wedding. She invited her sister, mother, and father, and although I arranged for a suite for them and plane tickets, car to meet them at the airport, they said they would go to the hotel and wouldn't be here until it was time for the wedding. Even her sister refused to be her maid of honor. Alex studied what Jonas had revealed to her, and something was weird about the whole thing. About her family in particular. All of it bothered Alex. I'll do my best to make your wedding a happy occasion. I promise you. Now let me get something prepared for us to eat. I'm hungry if you're not, and I don't want pizza. I've eaten enough of that with the kids. Jonas made a few calls to make sure the manager he'd just hired would take care of everything when he was on his honeymoon. He'd wanted to marry at the bar, but he didn't want everyone at his wedding. He thought it would be a solemn occasion, and he didn't want strangers sharing his precious day. And he thought Mark would cause problems. It would just be Jonas's family and Brooke's family, and that suited him just fine. After his calls, he became hungry and decided to see if Alex had finished the soup. He could smell it before he entered the kitchen. It was a chicken soup with noodles. He stopped in his tracks because that was his last memories of his mother, and how she would cook that soup for him when he was sick. All Alex needed was to make some lemon cakes and he'd be on cloud 9. Jonas tipped up behind Alex, and because she had focused on cooking, she didn't hear him. He placed his hands on her slim waist and she jumped. You shouldn't do that with something hot in my hands. Alex cautioned Jonas. Here, taste it. You're nothing but a little boy. Jonas smiled and took a sip of the soup. It tastes wonderful. What is that perfume you're wearing? I like that smell. I want to get some for Brooke. Brooke can buy her own perfume, Jonas. Alex and Jonas turned to see Brooke standing watching Jonas hold Alex around the waist, and leaning in smelling her hair and neck. Alex didn't notice it, because she was busy adding more seasoning to the soup. Hi, Brooke. I made enough soup for you. Brooke looked at her, and then looked at Jonas. I need to speak to you, Brooke said to Jonas in a commanding, strong voice. A voice that wasn't in keeping with her soft, low voice Alex had first heard. She stared at Alex when she turned to face her. When Jonas didn't move quick enough, Brooke said, Now, Jonas. Don't keep me waiting. Alex knew the sound of a dominant. How could she miss those cues? She knew that well. She had been one for Max. However, being married to him, and how they shared their roles of dominant and submissive, wasn't necessary anymore to prove who the dominant in their relationship was. They'd come to an understanding with each other. However, Jonas and Brooke's relationship was new, and it was apparent that Brooke had become the dominant, even as Jonas was once considered to be a master and the alpha in his previous relationships. Alex knew Jonas was a willing participant, and he'd been just the type to give in to Brooke. It was Brooke the one who controlled Mark too. The things that Jonas had told Alex about how he'd met Brooke, the men she'd claimed that Mark wanted her to fuck, and it suddenly dawned on Alex that Brook was controlling both men. They were there to service her wanton desires. There was no way Alex could tell Jonas. He had to find out on his own because Alex knew one thing: they always shoot the messenger. Chapter 14. When Alex had placed the table setting on the bar for the three of them, poured the soup into a large bowl, placed the ladle inside the soup tureen, she set French sourdough bread on a plate in front of the setting. Proud of herself, and ready to smooth things over between her and Brook, by assuring her that she wasn't the enemy, and would be her sister-in-law, and they could become good friends if Brook gave her a chance. Alex strolled down the hall, turned to face Jonas's door, raising her hands to knock, to tell them to come out and eat. The soup was ready. She came to a sudden stop in front of the door, because it was ajar and she could see Brook. Brook stood her legs wide, naked, with only high heels on, as she held a leather flogger in her hand. When Alex caught her breath ready to open her mouth, she saw Jonas with his wrists and feet tied to the bed naked, and he too was naked, face down, his arms and legs splayed. "You're not to touch another woman but me." "Say it, Jonas," Brook ranted as she hit him twice on each ass cheek. "Master, I'm not to touch another woman but you." And with the leather crop in her hand, she stood over him, lashing him several times on his buttocks. "When I take these handcuffs off, I want you to eat my pussy, and don't wipe your mouth until I tell you to. I want that slut you call Alex to know that you're my property, and that she should never think that she could own you, because I own you, Jonas Blackstone." And Brook beat Jonas until she broke skin. As he lay there, she didn't soothe his behind, or give him anything to ease his pain. "Now get up and get that soup that slut made, and bring it to me. I'm going to take a shower." After what Alex saw, she shuddered, turned before Jonas could see her, and headed back to the kitchen shaking. If Brook continued with those kinds of beatings, Jonas would be broken. If the war hadn't completely wiped him out, the woman of his dreams would, and she would be a nightmare to him and everyone he'd loved. Alex knew how Mark appeared to be damaged, and she knew it was at Brook's hands. This young woman had taken control of two very handsome rich men, and if Alex didn't do something, she would ruin Jonas the same way she'd probably ruined Mark. Jonas had been broken by war and life, and now this woman had come in to finish him off. When Jonas finally ambled into the kitchen, Alex glared at him and said, "Do you know what you're doing?" Alex filled the bowl with soup, then watched Jonas, who never glanced up at her. He raised his eyes but not his head. His breath shallow, his hands shaky after placing a bowl of hot soup on a tray. "What do you mean?" "I think you know what I mean, Jonas. You're no longer the master or dominant, you're a submissive. You've given away your control to Brook. You just met her. What were you doing? Snooping around, spying on me? What did you see?" Alex hadn't seen much. Was there more she'd missed? She'd felt thankful that she didn't catch all that act. "Why are you judging me? You control Max," he barked. "It's not the same thing, Jonas. You don't have children, and you're not married to her. You have no history with her. Max and I have a history, we love each other, we share control, and we're not in public using our power over the other person. Brook wanted me to see that she controlled you, and you fell for her shit. When you have power, you don't need to prove it. Brook is young. With my tutelage, she'll be better. I don't think you can teach her anything. She looked like she could teach you a few things. You know nothing about her, and from what I see, it's one way. Her way. Did you at least Google her?" By the look on Jonas's face, he did nothing. "You should have at least found out something about her. She could be a man." Jonas chuckled. "I think I would know if she was a man or not." "I hope so, but the way you're behaving, I wonder," Alex said as Jonas headed for the doorway. Then Jonas turned and admitted, Brook makes me feel. When she flogged me, a cloud lifted. She's all I want. Jonas took a step and then turned back to Alex. You're taken. What did you say, Jonas? Alex narrowed her eyes. You heard me. Don't act so surprised, he argued. Don't say that, Jonas. Don't ever say that to me again. It's true. What the fuck do you want? For me to lie to you? I'm trying to find someone like you. She looks like you. Didn't that give you a hint about how I felt about you? So now I have. Now wish me well. And Jonas walked out of the room carrying the cold soup. Alex tried to compose herself. She was shaking all over, thinking about what Jonas had said to her. Where the fuck was Max? Can't he be with her sometimes when she needed him? She needed him now more than ever, and so did Jonas. Alex knew Jonas had made the biggest mistake of his life, and there was no way that young woman was anything like her. Maybe in looks, but that was where the similarities began and ended. Rushing to find her phone, she didn't know where Max was, but she had to talk to him. He had to make it tomorrow. She texted him, and then left a message with his answering service. It wasn't an emergency, and Alex didn't want to leave a message where Max would be upset, and not go home first to check on the children, so she ended the call. Alex threw her phone down. When she glanced up, Brook had been looking at her, studying her. What's the matter? Can't control your submissive? For your information, he's not my submissive, he's my husband. What is the difference? If you don't know the difference, I can't tell you. Brook reached for her backpack and flung it across her shoulder and turned to leave. Did Jonas tell you that your ex came into the bar? Alex taunted. Why would he tell me that? I have that under control. Like you have Jonas under your control. Precisely. Now, if you don't have anything else to tell me, I'm going to be late for class. I don't have anything to tell you, but I will say one thing. If you do anything to fuck with Jonas in any way, including string him alone, and take another man to bed with Jonas, you will have me to deal with. Brook stared at Alex, tightened her jaw, twisted her mouth and said, I think you're in love with Jonas. We could make it a threesome, maybe foursome, if his brother is in with this. Then Brook laughed. I can tell by the look in your eyes, and your expression when I suggested that Max join us, you really are in love with Jonas, and you don't want to share either one of those handsome brothers. What will your husband say when he discovers the truth about you? There isn't anything to discover about me and Jonas, Alex objected. You mean you haven't taken him to bed and made him wear a collar, chains, and made him kiss your feet, and fucked him with your favorite sex toys yet? Well, I have, and you haven't lived until you have a man like Jonas at your beck and call ready to do anything for you. Brook raised her chin, and her head fell back as she laughed and laughed at Alex. Don't get me wrong. We are both alike. I can tell. You don't want to share, and I don't want to share Jonas with you. Do you understand me? Alex sauntered around the island to where Brook stood. Then she leaned and in a low whisper confessed. I understand you perfectly. But don't think we're alike. You haven't lived long enough to know what I'm like, or what I'm capable of. You can't begin to fathom how I can control men. You will never have Jonas completely, because I won't allow that. Get that in your head. You can fuck around with Mark because he's weak and loves you, but Jonas will never love anyone but me. And Alex aimed at Brook, a closed overconfident smile. That statement even surprised Alex. She couldn't believe she'd allowed Brook to goad her into expressing her innermost thoughts about Jonas. She never admitted that to anyone. Not even Jonas. Brook's face changed from shrewd and arrogant to sour and bitter. I knew what you were when I first met you. You're nothing but a slut. Yes, I guess I am, and perhaps a better slut than you, but I'm afraid you have me on those sex toys. I've never had those fantasies about Jonas. Now, after the air cleared and oxygen got to Alex's brain, she realized that she should have never said that to Brook. She tried to correct it, but she didn't think Brook would believe her when she said, Jonas is like a brother to me. The fuck he is, Brook grumbled, stormed out the back door and walked down around the stone path to climb into her new white Mercedes Jonas had bought her for a wedding present. Chapter 15. When Alex hurried anxiously around Miami looking for a business that could provide flowers and all sort of decorations to decorate the house, the outside garden and patio, and the bar for Jonas and Brook's wedding. She opened the door for the caterers to bring in the food and drinks, made sure the cleaning crew had done their jobs correctly to her specifications. Nevertheless, Brook had been conveniently absent since yesterday. She hadn't bothered to come home last night, or go to the club to help Jonas with the opening of his bar. Alex had been there to help at the last minute. Jonas had called her and said that he needed someone, and he didn't anticipate that the place would be so busy, and since she'd been a waitress, Alex had agreed to go and help out. Where's Brook? Alex had said to Jonas. She said that she had something important to do, and that she would be home later. Alex didn't ask any more questions, however, when Jonas slogged in early in the morning, after she'd called an Uber to take her home, and missed a call from Max. She never bothered Jonas. She knew she couldn't count on Brook helping her, because she'd gotten the feeling from Brook yesterday that she didn't want to be around her, and Alex felt the same way. If she didn't ever see Brook again, it would be too soon. However, she wouldn't be that lucky because Brook had to return sometime, because today was her wedding. And Alex had been certain she wouldn't miss that. Alex stood on the ladder and placed the last lanterns on the beams of the outdoor patio, trying to forget the argument she'd had with Brook. Standing below the ladder, she looked down to see Jonas. Thank you, Alex. I don't know what I'd do without you. She handed him her palm as he helped her down the ladder. When she stood looking up at his handsome, tired face, she commented, You look tired, Jonas. When did you get in? About 2 hours ago. I fell on the bed and I just woke. I'm sorry I wasn't any good to help out. Since Max didn't make it last night, and the wedding only a few hours away, do you think Max will get here on time? He never disappointed me before. Last night was the first time. The manager and his friends gave me a great bachelor party after we'd closed down and after you left. You know I've never had one before. Where was Brook through all of this? I know you said she had classes and classes don't last all night. Shouldn't she be here now? It's not my wedding. She texted me and said that she was staying at a friend's house and that she would be home in time for the wedding. That was good of her. I know it's a small wedding just for your family and hers, but shouldn't she have been here sometime? Maybe just to approve of the cake. When she texted me, I told her there wasn't much to do, because you'd taken care of everything. The caterers brought in the food and cake and liquor, I see, Jonas said, as he turned and glanced around the house. In an hour, I'll be a married man. Aren't you happy for me? Alex turned around and walked back into the house. Jonas walked behind her and stood looking at her as she pretended to arrange the platter of food. He'd wished it was Alex the one he'd marry, but then that was insane, he thought. So he dismissed that from his mind. Alex, you don't like Brook. I wished you two had gotten to know each other. You would love her like I do. She's not what you think. Brook is exactly who and what I think she is, Alex thought, as she stared blankly at the wedding cake. Isn't this a beautiful cake? I picked it out, and I don't know if Brook would like it, but that's too bad. She should have been here. And Alex marched away, but didn't get far before Jonas reached for her wrist and brought her around to face him. What is it, Alex? I've never seen you like this. Can't you be happy for me? You have been mean with everyone. I can understand you being short and sour with me, but not Brook. Who told you that I didn't like her? Have I given you any reason to think otherwise? Then Alex's phone rang and she reached inside her pants. She looked at her iPhone and turned. It's Max and I have to take this now. I'm going to take a shower and you need to do the same. We don't have much time. This isn't my wedding. Remember. When is Brook getting here? Jonas had gone when Alex answered. Max. When are you coming? I can't take any more of this. I need you here with me. I have so much to tell you about Jonas and that woman he's marrying. I thought you were happy that he was finally out of my hair and someone else would be responsible for him. That was until I had a chance to meet and talk to her. Look, baby. That isn't your responsibility anymore. It's time you stopped worrying over Jonas and start with me. I'm sorry I couldn't make it last night, but it was worth it. I waited until I knew that I was getting the right price for my hotel in Seattle. I'm home now, and I will reach there within a half an hour. Oh, I forgot to tell you that my jet had to be serviced, and since I'd offered Jonas the other jet, I'm flying myself in one of my smaller planes. Are you sure that's a good idea? It's the best one I have now, because I'm in the air now and I'll make it there for the wedding. You might make it before the bride. What are you talking about, Alex? I'll tell you when you get here. Love you, Max. I have to shower and get dressed. And they disconnected the call. Alex hopped into the shower and dressed, put her hair up into a bun, and hurried out of the room after placing very little makeup on and swiping pink lipstick on her lips. The chime rang from the Ring camera, and Alex realized that they would have guests in a few minutes, and Brook hadn't arrived yet. Alex checked around to see if everything looked okay, and was ready whenever the bride arrived. She looked in the garden, and the flowers were fresh, and hadn't wilted on the gazebo, facing the few chairs arranged to look as if more people were attending. When Alex glanced through the large windows that anchored the door, a limo had arrived, and 4 people were climbing out of the car. Alex sauntered to the door and opened it before they had a chance to ring the bell. Please come in. The couple were in their 50s, and according to their clothes, they were just ordinary people. Not rich and not poor. The man was a handsome man with mingled gray hair and his wife short and bone-thin with a tanned complexion. She may have been a beauty like Brook when she was 20, but she looked older and smelled of cigarettes. We're Brook's parents. She did tell you about us, the mother gushed. Alex aimed a warm smile their way and shook their hands. Yes, she did talk fondly about all of you. I'm Mrs. Blackstone. You're not Jonas's ex-wife, are you? The young girl interrupted. No. I'm his sister-in-law. My husband is the best man, and he'll be here later. He's flying down. In his own plane? The young boy of 16 asked Alex. See. Brook always finds men that have money. He does have money? The girl of 14 or 15 questioned. You ask too many questions, the boy said. Please come in and have a seat until the minister gets here and Brook. They walked into the living room, where the tables were set up with all kinds of food. Where's Brook? The father asked. She isn't here yet. I told Jonas when we met that he would have to treat her with a firm hand. If you know what I mean. Alex glanced over at him, and then her eyes wandered to where Jonas stood dressed in his black tux. "You look handsome, Mr. Blackstone," Brook's mother said. "Doesn't he?" The daughter sidled up to Jonas and looked up and met his eyes as Alex watched the brazen young girl flirt with Jonas. Jonas gave out a nervous grin. "I wish I was marrying him," the girl boasted. Moving away and standing next to Alex, Jonas said, "Call me Jonas. If you're wondering where Brook is, she just texted me and said that she was turning the corner." Then the bell rang. "Excuse me." Jonas hurried out of the room, happy to get away from that group. He opened the door to greet the minister. Before the minister could say a word, Brook tore past him, not acknowledging Jonas or stopping to kiss him. Stopping in the doorway, Brook smiled. "Hi everyone. I'm here. I bet you thought I wouldn't make it." Then she turned to Alex. "I need you to help me get into my dress." The dress had been delivered yesterday, and Alex had hung it in the closet. It was a long plain off-white dress cut low in front. Alex glared at Brook. Of all the people to help her, why didn't she ask her mother? Since she'd done that in front of her family and Jonas, Alex didn't want to appear insensitive, so she said, "Of course I'll help." Brook turned and rushed into the room, and Alex strolled behind her. When the door closed, Alex turned and glared at her. "You know I did this for Jonas. And why are you asking me to help you? I can't stand you. I've been working in here to make your wedding successful, and you don't give a fuck about any of this. Not even Jonas. I guess you're right about one thing. I don't give a fuck. But I give a fuck about fucking, and so do you." "You want to fuck him," Brook said as she stripped down and entered the shower. Alex reached for the dress and passed her palms over it. What a beautiful gown, and to have someone that ugly wear it. Brook stepped out of the shower wearing a towel drying her hair. Then she dropped it and pranced in front of Alex. "I bet you used to look like me. But I bet after you had children, it did something to your body. Stretch marks, I bet. I'm never going to have that, because I don't plan on having children." "Did you tell Jonas?" "Hand me my dress." Alex handed it to her. "Now zip me up." "You're great at giving orders, aren't you?" "As a matter of fact, I'm the best at getting men to do what I want." Alex zipped Brook up. "How did you fool Jonas into falling for your shit?" "Men are weak. Jonas is weak. I have a thing for weak men. And you? How did you get your husband to marry you?" "This is not about me. It's about you and Jonas. I'll never tell you anything about my relationship with my husband." "Oh yeah. Jonas told me all about Max and how you met him. I think it's hilarious. And you have the nerve to question me about Jonas." Brook turned to face Alex after she'd placed her shoes on her feet. "Aren't you going to wear underwear?" "I don't need any because I want to take Jonas in the room the minute we marry, and let him eat my pussy. Now what do you think?" "I think you've lost your mind, if you've ever had any." "Well, let me tell you what I think. You are jealous and wished he'd go down on you. Haven't you ever fantasized what it would be like to have a threesome with Max and Jonas? If you haven't, I have." When Brook turned to look in the mirror, Alex had her hand to Brook's throat. "Let me tell you one thing, I don't give a fuck what you do with Jonas and who he let fuck you. But if you ever think you will fuck around with my husband, I will kill you." Brook stared into Alex's fiery amber eyes, and she raised her hand and peeled Alex's hand from around her throat. "I will kill." The door opened and Jonas said, "Who are you going to kill, Alex?" "I was just telling Brook that I will kill her with kindness if she treats my favorite brother-in-law," the way he deserved to be treated. Didn't I, Brook? Yes, Alex did say that I should be good to you. I planned on being everything you want, and then some. Brook walked over to Jonas and kissed his lips, and then unzipped his dress pants and placed her hand inside his boxers to jerk him off. Jonas's eyes closed as she wrapped her fist around Jonas's wet cock. I think I should go before we have to have the ceremony in the bedroom, Alex said, passing the couple with Brook eyeing her as she stepped to the door. Don't you have to go, Jonas? I'll wait outside for Brook.